The city lights moved quietly outside the car window, fading into long golden streaks as the vehicle drove through the night. Inside, everything felt calm. Too calm. She sat back against the seat, her fingers resting in her lap, her mind still trying to catch up with everything that had just happened. A few hours ago, she was a bride. Now, she was someone else entirely. Her father sat beside her, silent but present. His presence felt strong, protective, but also distant, like he was carrying something heavy inside. She turned her gaze toward the window again. The reflection staring back at her didn't feel familiar. It felt like she was looking at a life she had never known. Then, her phone lit up. The sudden light cut through the silence. She frowned slightly, picking it up. Unknown number. Her heartbeat slowed, then picked up again. A strange feeling settled in her chest. She hesitated, then opened the message. Now that you know who you are you ready for the truth about your mother? Her breath caught. The words didn't just appear on the screen. They hit her. Hard. Her fingers tightened around the phone. Her calm expression shattered in an instant. My mother, she whispered. The word felt unfamiliar on her lips. Slowly, she turned her head toward her father. He had already seen her reaction. His jaw tightened. His eyes darkened. You saw it, he said quietly. It wasn't a question. It was a realization. Who sent this? She asked, her voice unsteady now. What do they mean, the truth about my mother? Silence. The kind of silence that answered more than words ever could. Her chest tightened. You know something, she said, this time more firmly. Don't you? Her father looked away for a brief second. That 1 second was enough. Enough to confirm everything. Her heart began to race. Before we go further, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if you're feeling the suspense, and comment what you think the truth about her mother might be. All this time, she whispered, her voice breaking slightly, I thought I had no one. She looked down at the message again. The words felt heavier now. More dangerous. More real. Is she alive? She asked slowly. The car continued moving forward, but inside, everything had stopped. Her father didn't answer. He just stared ahead, his expression unreadable. And that silence was more terrifying than any truth she could imagine. The car moved steadily through the quiet night, but inside, the silence felt heavier with every passing second. She stared at her phone again. The message hadn't changed, but the feeling it left inside her had grown. Her fingers tightened slightly around the device before she finally spoke. Who sent this? Her voice was soft, but not calm. It carried something deeper now. Fear. Curiosity. A need for answers she had never asked before. Her father didn't respond. He kept his eyes fixed on the road ahead, his expression unreadable. That silence made her chest tighten. She turned fully toward him now. Say something, she whispered. Still nothing. The quiet between them began to feel suffocating. You know what this means, don't you? She asked again, her voice slightly stronger this time. A pause. Then, he took a slow, heavy breath. But even then, he didn't speak. That was when she realized. This wasn't confusion. This was something else. Something he had been hiding. All my life, she said slowly, her voice trembling. I thought I had no parents, no past, nothing. Her eyes searched his face. But now suddenly, I have a father, and now this message about my mother? Her words broke slightly at the end. Was she real? She asked. Or is this just another truth I was never meant to know? Her father's hands tightened slightly. That was the first reaction he had shown. And it said everything. Tears began to form in her eyes, but she forced herself to stay strong. Please, she said quietly. Don't lie to me now. Not after everything. The car slowed slightly as it reached a quiet stretch of road. Streetlights passed one by one, casting shadows across his face. He closed his eyes for a brief moment, like he was gathering strength, like the truth itself was heavy. When he finally opened them again, they were no longer calm. They carried pain, deep, buried pain. I try to protect you, he said quietly. Her heart skipped. Protect? From what? From who? She leaned slightly closer, her voice almost a whisper now. Protect me from my own mother? He didn't answer, but the look in his eyes changed. And in that moment, she knew the truth wasn't just painful. It was dangerous. The car slowed as it turned onto a quieter road, the city noise fading behind them. Inside, the silence felt different now. Not empty, heavy. Her father finally spoke, but his voice was low, like every word carried weight. I didn't want you to find out like this, he said. She held her breath. Her eyes stayed fixed on him, waiting, fearing, needing the truth. Then tell me, she whispered. Please. He nodded slowly, as if accepting something he had avoided for years. For a long time, he began. You believed you had no family. She swallowed hard. That wasn't an accident, he continued. It was necessary. Her brows furrowed. Necessary? To make me feel alone. His expression tightened. To keep you alive. The words hit her harder than she expected. Alive? Her heart began to race. What do you mean? She asked, her voice shaking now. He looked at her, really looked at her this time. Your mother, he paused, his voice breaking slightly. She was not an ordinary woman. The air inside the car felt colder. She was strong, intelligent, and she knew things she wasn't supposed to know. A chill ran down her spine. What kind of things? She asked. He looked away for a moment, as if the memories were too painful to face. Dangerous truths, he said quietly. Truths that made powerful enemies. Her fingers curled into her palms. So you hid me, she said slowly. You erased my life? I protected you, he corrected gently. Tears filled her eyes, but she didn't look away. By letting me grow up thinking I was nothing? Her voice cracked. That was the only way to keep you safe, he said, his tone firm but filled with regret. If they knew who you were, they would have come for you too. The car came to a complete stop. The engines still running, but neither of them moved. She felt like the ground beneath her had disappeared. All those years, all that emptiness. It wasn't fate. It was a choice. A choice made to save her. Does this have something to do with her? She asked quietly. My mother? Her father closed his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them again, they were filled with something deeper than pain. Guilt. Yes, he said. A single word. But it changed everything. Because now she understood. This wasn't just about the past. It was about something far more dangerous. Something that had never truly ended. The engine hummed softly, but inside the car, everything felt still. She didn't blink. Didn't breathe properly. Her father's last words still echoed in her mind. Yes. Her voice came out in a whisper. Tell me what happened to her. He didn't answer immediately. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, as if he was holding onto something that was about to break. Then slowly he spoke. She never left you. The words hit her like a wave. Her eyes widened. What? She breathed. She didn't abandon you, he continued, his voice heavy with pain. She fought for you. Until the very end. Her chest tightened. All those years believing she was unwanted. And now, everything was changing. Then why wasn't she with me? She asked, her voice shaking. Why didn't she come back? A long silence followed. The kind that carried memories too painful to speak. It happened one night, he said finally. His voice had changed. It sounded distant, like he was no longer in the car, but somewhere far in the past. There was an attack. Her heart skipped. An attack, she repeated. He nodded slowly. They came for us. Not just for me, but for her. Her breath grew shallow. And you, she asked. I was targeted, he said. But your mother, she refused to run. A tear slipped down her cheek. She held you in her arms, he continued, his voice breaking now. Protecting you, even when everything was falling apart. The car felt colder, quieter. She told me to take you and leave, he said. She knew if we stayed together, none of us would survive. Her vision blurred. No, she whispered, shaking her head. No, she wouldn't just let me go. She didn't let you go, he said softly. She gave you a chance to live. Silence. Heavy, crushing silence. They took her, he added quietly. Her heart stopped. What do you mean took her? He closed his eyes briefly. She was separated from us by force. The words felt unreal, too cruel, too final. Tears streamed down her face now, but she didn't wipe them away, because for the first time, she wasn't crying because she was alone. She was crying because she wasn't. But then a terrifying thought crossed her mind. Her voice trembled. Where is she now? Her father didn't answer. And that silence was worse than any truth she had heard so far. The silence inside the car no longer felt empty. It felt dangerous. Her question still hung in the air. Where is she now? But instead of answering, her father's expression darkened. Not just with pain, with something else. Anger. A slow, controlled anger that had clearly been buried for years. It wasn't random, he said quietly. She frowned, confused. What do you mean? He turned slightly toward her, his eyes sharp now. That night, the attack wasn't an accident. Her heart skipped. They didn't just find us, he continued. They were led to us. A cold wave ran through her body. Led by who? She asked, her voice barely steady. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked ahead, as if the truth itself was something he had to face before speaking it out loud. Someone we trusted, he finally said. The words felt heavier than anything else he had said so far. Her mind struggled to understand. Trusted, she repeated softly. You mean someone close to us? He nodded. Yes. The air inside the car felt suffocating now. Who? She asked again, more urgently this time. Her father's jaw tightened. There was a man, he said slowly. Someone who worked beside me for years. Someone who knew everything about our lives, our movements, our weaknesses. Her hands began to tremble. He was like family, he added, his voice filled with quiet bitterness. Her breath caught. Why would he do that? She asked. What could he possibly gain? Power, her father answered instantly. Control. And everything that belonged to us. The realization hit her like a storm. So, he planned it, she whispered. Yes. One word. Cold. Final. He gave them the information, her father continued. He made sure they knew exactly when to strike, where we would be, how to break us apart. Tears filled her eyes again, not just from pain, but from betrayal. He destroyed our family, she said, her voice trembling. Her father didn't deny it. Instead, he looked at her with something even deeper than anger. Regret. I should have seen it, he said quietly. I trusted him, and I lost everything because of it. The car fell silent again. But this silence was different. It carried a name, a face, a truth that was no longer hidden. And as she wiped her tears slowly, her voice came out, stronger than before. Who is he? Her father didn't answer, but the look in his eyes changed, because the next truth was the one that would change everything. The car stood still under a dim streetlight. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, everything had stopped. She waited. Her question still hung between them. Who is he? But something in her father's silence told her the answer she needed was something else. Something worse. Her voice came out softer this time. Forget him, just tell me one thing. She swallowed hard. Is my mother alive? The words felt fragile, like they could break just by being spoken. Her father didn't look at her immediately. His hands rested on the steering wheel, unmoving. Then slowly he lowered his head. That one movement was enough. Her heart dropped. No, she whispered, shaking her head slightly. No, that's not. She's gone. The words were quiet, but they shattered everything. Her breath stopped. For a moment, she didn't react, didn't cry, didn't move. It was as if her mind refused to accept what it had just heard. Gone? No, she repeated, her voice barely there. You're wrong, you have to be wrong. Tears filled her eyes, blurring her vision. She fought, her father said, his voice breaking for the first time. She survived longer than anyone expected, but in the end, he couldn't finish. He didn't need to. The silence did it for him. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. And another. I never even met her, she whispered, her voice trembling. I never heard her voice, never saw her smile. Her chest tightened painfully. All this time, I thought she left me. She let out a broken breath. But she was suffering alone. Her father closed his eyes, unable to hide his pain anymore. I couldn't save her, he said quietly. And I couldn't bring you back to her. That was the moment she broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. She covered her mouth as a soft sob escaped, her shoulders trembling. Years of emptiness suddenly had a reason, and it hurt more than not knowing ever did. I was too late, her father whispered. She shook her head slowly, tears falling freely now. No, you weren't the only one who lost her. Her voice cracked. I lost her without ever having her. The car filled with quiet grief. The kind that had no cure. Only time. Only acceptance. And as she sat there, holding on to a love she never got to feel, one thought slowly formed in her mind. If her mother was gone, then someone had to pay for it. The tears had not fully stopped, but they were quieter now, less sharp, more exhausted. She sat still, her eyes lowered, her breathing slowly finding its rhythm again. The pain was still there, but something else had begun to rise beside it. A need to understand. If she's gone, she said softly, her voice fragile but steady. Then what happened to them? Her father didn't hesitate this time. They paid for it. She looked up. His tone had changed. It was no longer filled with guilt. It carried something colder. Final. The man who betrayed us, he continued, and everyone involved in that night, they were found. Her fingers tightened slightly in her lap. What did you do? She asked. A pause. Not long. Just enough. I made sure they could never hurt anyone again. The words were simple, but the meaning behind them was heavy. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the weight of what justice had cost. They took everything from us, he said, his voice calm but firm. They destroyed your mother, they tore our family apart. His eyes darkened slightly. I couldn't bring her back, he added quietly, but I could make sure they faced the consequences. She watched him in silence. For years, she had believed she had nothing. No past. No one who fought for her. But now she knew. Someone had. Even in the shadows. Even in silence. Was it worth it? She asked gently. The question surprised him. He looked at her for a moment, then exhaled slowly. No, he admitted, because nothing brings her back. The honesty in his voice softened something inside her. But, he continued, it ended the fear. A quiet stillness settled between them. Not empty this time. Peaceful. The truth is no longer hidden, he said. No one is coming for you anymore. Those words meant everything. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was running from something unknown. She felt safe. The pain didn't disappear, but it no longer felt unfinished. She looked out the window again. The night was still there. The city still moving. But inside her, something had finally settled. A chapter had closed. Not perfectly. Not without scars. But completely. She took a slow breath. And whispered, almost to herself, then it's over. Her father didn't answer. But the silence this time felt like peace. No, he admitted. Because nothing brings her back. The honesty in his voice softened something inside her. But, he continued, it ended the fear. A quiet stillness settled between them. Not empty this time. Peaceful. The truth is no longer hidden, he said. No one is coming for you anymore. Those words meant everything. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was running from something unknown. She felt safe. The pain didn't disappear, but it no longer felt unfinished. She looked out the window again. The night was still there. The city still moving. But inside her, something had finally settled. A chapter had closed. Not perfectly. Not without scars. But completely. She took a slow breath. And whispered, almost to herself, then it's over. Her father didn't answer. But the silence this time felt like peace. The night felt quieter now. Not because the world had changed, but because something inside her had. She sat alone in her room, the soft light of a lamp casting shadows across the walls. The silence wrapped around her, but this time, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt honest. Her hands rested in her lap, still trembling slightly. So many truths, so many years of emptiness, now filled with pain she didn't know how to hold. "My mother," she whispered softly. The words felt different now. Real. Alive, even if she wasn't. Tears slowly rolled down her cheeks again, but she didn't stop them. She let them fall, because for the first time, they had meaning. "I thought you left me," she said quietly, her voice breaking. "I thought I wasn't wanted." Her chest tightened. "But you were fighting for me all along." A soft sob escaped her lips, but she quickly covered her mouth, trying to hold herself together. The room echoed with her silence. And then, she stood up. Slowly, unsteadily, but she stood. Her reflection caught her eye in the mirror across the room. She looked at it. Really looked. The girl staring back at her wasn't the same anymore. She wasn't lost. She wasn't invisible. She was someone who had survived a truth most people could never carry. Her breathing steadied. Her tears didn't stop, but they softened. "I can't stay here," she whispered to herself. "Not in this pain. Not in this past." She stepped closer to the mirror. Her eyes, still wet, now held something stronger. "I won't live my life as a broken story," she said quietly. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was firm. "I'll carry you with me," she added softly, as if speaking to someone far away. "But I won't let this pain define me." The air in the room shifted. Not dramatically, but enough. Enough for her to feel it. A change. A beginning. She wiped her tears slowly, taking a deep breath. For the first time since everything had been revealed, she felt in control. Not of the past, but of what came next. And as she turned away from the mirror, there was no hesitation in her steps. Because even with a broken past, she had finally found her strength. And this time, she wasn't looking back. Morning light spilled across the floor, soft and steady. It was a new day, not just outside, but within her. She stood near the tall window, looking over the city that once felt so far away from her life. Cars moved below. People rushed through their routines, but for her, everything had shifted. She was no longer the girl with nothing. She was the one who had everything waiting. Behind her, the door opened quietly. Her father stepped in. He didn't speak at first. He simply watched her, as if trying to understand the strength she had found overnight. "You didn't sleep," he said gently. She shook her head slightly, her eyes still on the horizon. "I didn't need to," she replied. There was no exhaustion in her voice. Only clarity. A calm he hadn't seen before. "I thought about everything," she continued softly. "About her, about me, about what comes next." He stepped closer. "And?" he asked. She turned to face him. And for the first time, there was no confusion in her eyes. "I'm done running from who I am." The words were simple, but powerful. Her father's expression softened. "That life you lived," he said, "you don't have to carry it anymore." She smiled faintly. "I will carry it," she said, "but not as weakness." She took a step forward. As strength. Silence filled the room, but it wasn't heavy. It was proud. "You are my daughter," her father said quietly. "Everything I have, everything I built, it belongs to you." She held his gaze. Not overwhelmed. Not afraid. Ready. "Then teach me," she said. He raised his brows slightly. "Teach you what?" "How to stand where you stand," she replied. "How to protect what matters." Her voice didn't shake. Not even a little. Because this time, she wasn't asking for a place in that world. She was claiming it. Her father nodded slowly. A rare smile touched his face. "Then it begins today." She turned back toward the window one last time. The city didn't look distant anymore. It looked like something she could own. Control. Change. And as she walked toward the door, her steps were steady. Certain. Because the girl who once questioned her worth was gone. And in her place stood a woman who knew exactly who she was becoming. The evening sky stretched wide above her, painted in soft shades of gold and fading blue. The wind moved gently through her hair as she stood alone on the terrace, high above the noise of the city. For the first time in a long time, everything felt quiet, not empty, Not painful, just still. She held a small photograph in her hand, the only one she had. A blurred image, a memory she never lived, but now carried in her heart. Her fingers traced the edge of it carefully, as if afraid it might disappear. "Hi," she whispered softly. Her voice was calm, gentle, like she was finally speaking to someone she had waited her whole life to meet. "I don't know if you can hear me," she continued, her eyes lifting toward the sky, "but I've been wanting to say this for a long time." A small tear slipped down her cheek, but she smiled through it. Not broken, not lost, just emotional. "I used to think you left me," she said quietly. "I thought I wasn't enough for you to stay." Her grip on the photo tightened slightly. "But now I know you never left." The breeze grew a little stronger, wrapping around her like a silent answer. "You were fighting for me," she whispered, "even when I didn't know it." She closed her eyes for a moment, taking a slow, deep breath. All the pain, all the questions, all the years of emptiness, they didn't disappear, but they didn't control her anymore. When she opened her eyes again, there was something new in them. Peace. "I wish I could have met you," she said softly. "Even just once." Her voice trembled, but only slightly. "Just to hear you call my name." Silence followed, but this time it didn't hurt, because she no longer felt alone. She looked up at the sky again, her expression steady, her heart finally settled. "I will live the life you couldn't, Mom." The words left her lips like a promise. A vow. Not just to her mother, but to herself. She lowered the photo slowly, holding it close to her chest. The sun dipped lower, and the city lights began to glow beneath her. A new world, a new life, waiting. And as she stood there, no longer searching, no longer broken, there was only one truth left. Her story wasn't defined by what she lost, but by what she chose to become.